Hi, my name is Glenn Ludlum. Today we're going to look at tramming in the head on a mill. We're going to do this the quick way, so if you're out in the shop and you just want to check it real quick to make sure it hasn't been screwed up, we're going to do it off of the vise rails themselves. We're not going to do it off the machine. We're going to do that in another video where we can dial in the entire machine perfectly. But this one we're just going to use the rails as our datum. Okay, so first thing we need is a dial test indicator. This happens to be a 5/10 dial test indicator. We do have 50 millionths dial test indicator that we will use later when we do the big tram. But the 5/10 is good for just checking and seeing if there's any movement on the head, if somebody's been messing with it or whatever. So right now, a dial test indicator, in case you don't know how these things work, you should have gotten this in your metrology videos, but just to go over it real quick, this finger right here moves, which causes the dial to move. And when that finger moves, that dial moves. Every segment in the dial, every increment is 1/2 of 1,000th. So we can see pretty good movement on this. The other thing you'll need is some sort of indicator arm. These are pretty cool. I say this all the time. When you do this, they turn into this little floppy thing, and then it's just one tightening, and they tighten up completely. I think that is a brilliant piece of engineering. Whoever engineered that is brilliant. We'll also need a collet. This one happens to be 5/16 because that's what size this is. Oh, this is an R8 collet. Okay, now we're going to put the collet in the machine. Watch this. First of all, I'm going to have the wrench. I'm going to set it close where I can reach it. Then I'm going to reach in. I'm going to wipe the inside of the spindle. We call it wiping your butt. We say that because nobody ever forgets to wipe their butt. This should never be forgotten. Anytime you put a collet in, even if you just pulled another one out, even if you didn't use the machine, wipe it out. Wipe your butt. Some of these machines have little keys inside, and it has a little slot on the collet where we need to line it up. So we're going to see if this one's got one. It doesn't feel like it's got one. Some machines do, some machines don't. In industry, a lot of times they take them out just because they mess things up. Some people say, no, we swear by them. That's fine. Either way, we would just turn it until we feel it register and then slide it all the way up in. I'm going to put my hand up here on top of the drawbar and tighten it up. Just snug. Now I can put this indicator arm in. And while I'm still holding on to the arm, I'm not ever going to let go of that. While I'm still holding on to the arm, then I tighten up the collet, at least to the point where it's snug. Then I can use the brake to tighten it up. Okay, so I need to put the machine in neutral in order to do this. The neutral switch is over on this side of the machine. It's right here. So if we put this into the middle section, the spindle spins freely. Back around. We're going to put the indicator, and you notice I didn't have the indicator in the arm when I put it in the machine. That was on purpose. When you do that, just in case you drop that indicator arm, if you drop a dial test indicator, that little finger right there, see that little thing, tends to land first. It's just one of those weird things, and it snaps it off. As soon as you snap it off, most of the time you cannot repair these. Sometimes you can, most of the time you can't. These aren't cheap. A good one will cost you upwards of $100, $160. The best ones, $350, $400. So this one is a Michitoyu. That's a $120 test indicator. So here we go. We're going to put it in our little dovetail. Tighten it up. I'm going to do side to side first. I'm going to check it from one side of the rail to the other. Now I'm going to make sure that I check it in the same place on either side of the rail, because these rails, as they get worn, they start wearing in a V pattern like this. So I'm going to try and get it in the same place so it's the same place of that V pattern. So here we go. First we're going to put the machine so it's kind of in the middle of this, and it's just a matter of eyeballing it. And I'm going to get in your shot just a little bit like that. I'm going to put the quill down, lock it so I don't get any weird movements. And then we're just going to sweep it side to side, get enough where I can have clearance. You notice I've opened up the vise already, so I have plenty of room for this thing so it's not going to bang into the back jaw. So here we go. We're going to go side to side. I'm kind of in the middle, not quite. I'm also a little too wide, so I'm going to come in just a little bit tighter. Also, if you can see this, the indicator, the arm on the indicator is not pogo sticking. It's called cosine error. So you want this thing to be able to flex. And if it flexes nicely, then that half thousandths that you're reading is actually a half thousandths. It's not, if you're pogo sticking, who knows what you're reading? Or if you're, or sometimes if you get them too low, the backside of the indicator will hit the vise, and then you got some real problems. Okay, so I am pretty close to center. I am side to side, look like I'm hitting pretty much the same spot on either side of the vise. So now I'm going to bring up the knee. Whew. That knee is tight. So if a knee is tight, you want to see why. Oh yeah, somebody has tightened this knee down. Who knows why? This is a teaching college, so when we come in, especially if you're at the college, or if you're coming into a machine that you haven't used before, you want to check the tram of the head before you do anything. So this one was tight, so that means that somebody was doing something crazy with it. I'm going to bring this up until it reaches a number. I happen to be on 15 right now. Some people like 0. I don't, because 0, when you do 0, then you're going from side to side on the 0, and you can get confused on which side of the line you're actually on. Where if I'm at 15 right now, I can actually see which side I'm on. And I'm sweeping this around. And surprisingly, this is pretty close. I'm looking at just a couple of tenths, if that. And you notice in my transition time when I'm coming across, that transition time, I know that in our close-up video, it looks like I've got a massive amount of cosine error, but I really don't. This indicator is actually sitting relatively flat to the vice rails. So here we go. We're going to sweep it around, and you can see, just barely see this thing with the glare, that we're sitting right on 15. And we're going to come across, and as we exit this little transition point here, I'm going to go slow. And as we come into the other transition, I'm going to go slow. And then I can come back around, and you can see that the indicator is on 15 still. You see that? Okay. So I'm going to knock this thing out just a little bit to show you how to tram it in. So here we go. I'm going to get the indicator out of the way. I'm going to loosen it just a little bit so that when I bump it with a hammer, surprisingly I'm going to hit the thing with a hammer. When I bump it with a hammer, I'm also going to make sure that somebody didn't do the more inaccurate way of indicating a head in by using this little guy here. I want to make sure that that's in a neutral position so I don't have any kind of, it feels like, oh, there it is. Yeah, that somebody did it that way. So it's, see how it's nice and loose now? That's what we want. Nice and loose. So we want to make sure it's in between. Now I'm just going to bump it with a hammer so I can get this thing to move for me. And then we can indicate it back in again. Bump. There we go. So let's see what it looks like now. And you saw, all I did was just barely loosen this up. I barely touched it with a hammer. Let's see how far it actually did move. So you'll know that if you crash a machine, you're going to want to make sure that you indicate this thing in. And trust me, even at this stage in my career, I still crash machines. Yeah, I'm known to be a very aggressive machinist. So when I run things hard, they tend to move the head around. Okay, so let's see. We're going to get that close-up view again, and we're going to check. I'm going to come up until it hits that 15 again, and I can tell you right now I'm off. So there's a 15. I'm going to come around. And I'm off by 1,000th, 3/4 of a thousandth. You may not think it's that much, but 3/4 of a thousandths, if you're doing something that's 10 inches long, that turns into something pretty large. You know, that could be 1 or 2 thousandths. Well, if you only have a tolerance of 1 or 2 thousandths, 3/4 of a thousandths is quite a bit. So how do we get this thing to tram in? These 4 bolts right here are what is actually holding this entire head on. There's just a little plug in the back that's precision ground. This thing fits into it, it spins on it. So we're gonna loosen, I've already got it just barely snug, which is just great, but I'm gonna loosen 2 of them. So I'm gonna back this out, make sure that it's just barely snug. And then across, I'm going to back this one out and make sure that it's barely snug. Now I'm gonna loosen the opposite 2, all the way up. So what I've done is, instead of loosening all of them, when you loosen all of them, the whole head tends to tilt this way. And if that's the case, when you're going back and forth, you can get some false readings. You want to make sure that it's pressed up against its plate in the back. So we've loosened only 2. Now I've got the same, I've moved a little bit since I moved it. So I'm gonna go down to 10 on this one, because that transition I think is gonna get greater if I'm not careful. I'm just gonna sweep it back and forth, and you can see that, oh wow, when I loosened it, it really moved. So this thing was under a great deal of tension, which when you're doing, yeah, I'm off by about 12 thousandths now. Okay. The funny thing is, I'm off this way. Huh. I don't use a hammer when I'm trimming a head. I use my fist. Your fist has a little bit softer blow than a hammer does. Also, that vibration tends to knock these things around a little bit. You'll, again, get false readings. So let's push on this. Let's see where we can go to. I'm going to go to about 15. It was actually reading 10 on each side. So it was 10 on one side, 10 on the other, which means that, and it was the opposite 10s, which means that I was somewhere in between. And if you look at an indicator, it's got a 10, a 10, and a 15. So I went to the 15. I went to the center, and then we're going to sweep it back. Nice and slow. And when we get to a little closer, I'll show you the close-up. Okay, so we can kind of see that dial. And you can see that I'm just somewhere close to 15. This is, so far, I'm just roughing it in. And then we're going to fine tune it a little bit. And you can see that I'm off by quite a bit. And I'm towards that 10. So let's see which side that comes to. So I was towards this 10 right over here. I wasn't on this side, I was on this side. And if we move the indicator, we'll notice that I actually hit it too hard. So I need to come back this way. So we're going to bump it until we get to a little closer to that 10, right about there. So that looks about even to the middle. So far, I'm still roughing it, remember. So what I'm trying to get to is where I'm in between the 2 spaces that I'm measuring on either side of the machine. So that was kind of close to the middle. Oh boy, it's going to be one of these. Sometimes you have to chase them back and forth. It's really frustrating. But you know, that's all right. Yeah, if I snug it up just a little bit more. So I'm going to snug up the little guys. Nope, it was these guys that I snugged. So I'm going to snug up my head just a little bit more so I don't get quite such the deflection. And now I'm heavy on this side, so I need to bump it so that this comes back towards the 15 some more. Okay, so let's see what's going on. We're going to bump it just a little bit more towards that 15 this time. And this time, you're only going halfway, by the way. So you're not going all the way to the 15 because you're just going to chase it back and forth, back and forth. You don't want to do that. So we're going to come around. Oh, this is looking much better. Oh, look at that. Now it's time to reset. So I'm going to reset my 0 so I can get a little bit better accuracy, so I know exactly what I'm going up against instead of just kind of guessing that I'm in between. So now I've reset my 0 to 15. I'm coming back around. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to tighten it and see what happens. I'm within just a couple of tenths. And a couple of tenths I'll take on these old machines. So I'm tightening up the ones that were already tight. You may not be able to see this right now, but you can see the movement on the machine itself, on the dial. Now we can check it again. So I'm just at 15 right there. You notice how I'm shaking it a little bit, making sure that I'm checking both ways. An indicator tends, when you go back and forth with an indicator, sometimes there's a little bit of looseness right down here where it joins to the pendulum, and the needle itself will rattle just a little bit. So you want to make sure you're not somewhere in the middle of that rattle. So you want to go back and forth a little bit to make sure that you got a nice even. Okay, we're coming around. I just bumped the arm. I don't know if this is going to read right. Oh my, that looks really good. I'm within just a tenth or two. And if you can indicate a head within a tenth or two, that's pretty darn good. Okay, so now that we're within a tenth or two down here, I'm going to tighten up these 4 bolts. And I've already snugged them up a little bit when I was doing the sweeping. I kept on snugging them up and looking and snugging them up and looking. So now I'm going to really, not reef them, but put about, for you car guys, probably about 30 to 40 foot-pounds on it. If you just barely touch them, you'll tend to knock your head out of Tram a lot. Okay, you notice it's the same wrench that I used from up here. And look, nowhere near up here. It never, ever goes up there and gets left up there. Same with this. We never leave it on the front of the machine. This can fall into your cutting surface. That's not good.